guys, welcome to EMS at Sea Level. I am once again with Koppitz of KATEK. Rainer, I looked back on our last EMS at Sea Level interview and it was close to 2 years ago, and we were just in the depths of the coronavirus crisis. And as you mentioned before we started, it's just been one crisis after another, and that's the challenge of business these days. We're going to come to that, but first of all, congratulations on the recent numbers. Sales numbers are moving in the right direction. I'm curious, how much more could you have shipped if the component shortages weren't as bad as they are?
Yeah, that's a good question. We did a rough calculation on this, looking at the backlog and also on our capacity, and I mean it's around 15%. So 15% of the 315 million from the first 2 quarters, you easily.
It's another 45 million or so, isn't it? Yeah, 50 million.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah. And what's your expectation around the shortages? Because you've pushed up the numbers that you're predicting for the full year. Is that based on a bit of easing in the supply chain?
I mean, that's an interesting question, because originally when we planned the year 22, we planned a very weak first half year and then a much stronger second half year. And now it could turn out that it's maybe the opposite. But honestly speaking, I really don't know. What we are seeing right now is that in some areas of the components, the shortage is already about to become better, especially if you look into memories, because certain industries like computers, gaming, smartphones, they are not running as well as they should. So there's room for improvement for other industries regarding memories, and also others like PCBs, for instance. So there we really see that something's becoming better. But I mean, there are some really mission critical suppliers for the industries we are serving, like for instance STMicro, like Texas Instruments, where we still see lead times with 1 year and more, and where I'm a very positive kind of guy, so I'm saying the lead times are not increasing anymore. But in those areas, they are still very high, and we don't see right now that it's becoming better short term. So that's the situation, I would say. So the shortage is, of course, one of the obstacles for the second part of the fiscal year, especially whether there will be additional Chinese lockdowns. I think that's the risk. With the hugest threat we are facing here, but also in terms of recession, because we all in the industry, we have total full order books, the backlog, but also the forecasts now for the time to go. And nobody knows what will happen if now the global recession is coming, and then, for instance, maybe starting in the more let me say consumer areas like white goods, etc., etc. The demand is kind of stopping, and then the forecasts will really go down, and then of course there will be an additional burden, because everybody has a very high inventories because of the strategic buffer and the very, very high order books, and then we have the next problem for the industry, and candidates which are stable enough, they will go into deep problems.
Yeah, no, it's a curious situation, because we're using interest rates and we're trying to slow an economy to rid ourselves of an inflation that really is mainly caused by supply side rather than demand side. So we're in this strange, I think a lot of economists are struggling to see what's going on. I spoke to 2 economists in the US, and one told me, when we've had inflation like this, we've never not had a recession. And the other one told me, when we've had employment numbers like this, we've never had a recession. So one of them has to be wrong. We have to break a pattern in some way. So I think it's Yeah, it's a very curious situation. Your order books are full. The component distributors, component manufacturers' order books are full. We've started to wonder whether these order books feel a little bit like forecasts and how credible they are. Do you fear that people have overordered or felt they've just had to order a long way forward because of the situation in the supply chain?
Yeah, I don't think that the order books are inflated. I mean, we go with all our main customers, we go line by line through their forecasts, and normally they are really backed by what their customers and their channels want them to deliver. But so I think it's not inflated. It's really not inflated. But what I think is that maybe this could change, because if you look, for instance, in the construction, real estate, kind of industry, then you say that they have a lot of orders which are being canceled right now because everything is getting much more expensive. And if you think this through, then in the entire chain, then you need less electronics in the smart home, then you need less electronics, in the kitchen, etc., etc., etc. And all of what we have in the order books right now, this is all backed by a completely different view on what the future is looking like. So I mean, now autumn will be very, very interesting, because especially in the close to the consumers kind of industries, we are really expecting, or we're not expecting, we are kind of looking very carefully what will change there and how. What will happen with the order books. But secondly, with all of our main customers, and this will be very interesting, we have a kind of a frozen windows kind of mechanism, meaning that, most of those orders on which we already, based on which we already ordered the components, are kind of binding. So this will be very interesting what will happen then if the demand is going down.
This will be no, it's curious. Before we move on to that, and that's really interesting, I just want to leave you with one statistic on that. The statistics that came out in the last week or so from the German component distribution industry, 6 consecutive quarters with book-to-bill above 1.5. That is if you imagine you've built a backlog with a 1.5 book-to-bill on 6 consecutive quarters, that's just a substantial potential overhang there, which I think is fascinating. Anyway, going back to the binding nature of the relationship with customers, you've got a strong EBITDA going through. And when I listened to Johannes Fuse talking about that, your CFO, he mentioned renegotiating with customers. And we've talked a lot in the past about the changing relationship and getting much closer with your customers in terms of a manufacturing partnership rather than just an outsourcing service. Has the component shortage forced you to really think hard about that? And have you had some kind of very, very clear and poignant discussions with customers that are actually forging better collaborations going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. There are 2 points in terms of stronger cooperation. The first of all, to manage this shortage, you really need to collaborate very, very, very closely. Meaning, there has to be I would say, total transparency from both sides in terms of what can you deliver, which parts are missing, what are the consequences if the parts are coming in, what's your production capacity, so how fast can you really digest the backlog. All of those discussions need to happen jointly together in a very close cooperation, not kind of accusing the other party, but really solving it. The other point here is that you also can think about, if you are continuously having problems with one supplier, with let us just say Texas Instruments, and you don't see an end there, then of course you need to discuss with your customer whether you should do a redesign together very fast, with all the consequences to re-audit, to, I mean, all those kind of things, which is also something which can also happen in close cooperation in a trust-based partnership. And that's exactly what you know, was happening and is happening with our most important clients right now. On the other side, Phil, we are also having a lot of, let me say, tough discussions with the customers. For instance, I mean, we have since May the very clear rule within KATEK, because the margins in our industry, as you know, I mean, they are not the thickest. Yeah, exactly. They are like this. So if you have components where you have extra cost, which is factor 6 or something like this, from the original price, you cannot digest this. So we have a very strict rule with extra cost. If we buy something from brokers, for instance, that, you know, the sales department has to ask the customer whether they are taking the extra cost. And if they don't want, or they just can't because they cannot pass it to their customers, and sometimes it's only 15 minutes to come to an answer here, then our purchasing department is not allowed to order at extra cost. And it's 100%. The customer has to take, because they normally have the better margins, and they have to think about whether they can pass the price increases to their customers. If not, we will not order it. And we are doing this extremely strictly. And then, of course, you can imagine you have all the discussions, and I understand this, with your customers saying, I mean, it's a partnership, let's do 50-50. Then we are saying, no, we don't have 50-50 margin.
We have this margin, you have this margin.
Exactly. But those are the discussions we're having every day. And that's extremely hard for your sales departments, because they are used to, let me say, sell new products, new services, whatever, and you know, kind of
promise, and
promise. And now coming to the customer one day saying, look, you have to take the extra cost. If not, I cannot deliver to you. And the second day they have to come and say, look, I mean, we have all those price increases in the components. We need to increase the prices. And the third day, you are coming and saying, if I look into the inventory with regards to your projects, I mean, we have overstock, excess stock. So, you know, either you pay in advance for this, but we cannot bear this anymore. And those are the nasty discussions the sales departments now are forced to have with the customers. And of course, we try to do all of this in a very partnership approach, but also very consequently, because not you as a service company in the electronics environment, I mean, you go into big troubles.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely understand that. And I wonder whether the frankness of the discussions leads to a more open relationship and leads them to understand a little bit better your business model and the value that you're providing and what you're actually doing for them, rather than them just thinking, well, how do we get KATEK to take less margin so we can take more margin? I mean, that's not the relationship we want going forward. You mentioned the inventory. Obviously, working capital in your numbers remains high due to just increase in inventory and work in progress.
Yeah, it's not really work in progress. It's really inventory, and inventory due to two reasons. The first reason, because I mean, of course, we are building strategic buffer stocks, because we really want, if the missing part is arriving, we can immediately build the components, the products, and deliver it to the customer. Because if then other components are missing, I mean, then you know, it's really bad. So as long as we can afford it, we have those strategic buffer stocks. But the other issue is, of course, that, I mean, in many times, and especially in the automotive industry, then you have everything available, But I mean, the customer is saying, sorry, next week I don't need it because I know you can deliver.
Because I don't have a cable harness or I don't have something
they
else.
cannot deliver. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we don't need your components as well. So that's the, I would say, ugly part of it, because then of course also you have all the material available and you need to wait until the customer is ready to digest it.
Yeah, no, it's a very challenging situation. On a positive note, I was really fascinated to read when I read the report to see the segment growth you'd seen in e-mobility, in renewables, in tele-care. Talk to me a bit about those and what kind of bets you've made on those segments.
Yeah. Let me start with e-mobility, because I mean this was with something like 13% growth. It was successful, but it was of course by far not as successful as it could have been. And that's of course because today we are completely reliable from, let me say, the sales of Porsche, Volkswagen, Bentley, Audi, to sell e-cars, to sell electric cars, because only then we can deliver into those cars our mobile charger. And they were really struggling with the chips crisis, etc., etc. So that's the reason why we only have a growth of 13% there. I mean, it's still good, but it's 13%. We are expecting much higher growth there again next fiscal year when we come up with our own ghost charger, which is a fascinating product.
I was going to ask you about that. Let's cover the other segments first, exactly. And then you can tell me about that.
But I mean, the really high growth, you know, we did in first tele-care, the tele-care segment, and where nurse call is also embedded. That's due to two reasons. I mean, first of all, it's really a growth area because people become elder and elder, and everybody don't wants to go into a home for elder people, and that's a brilliant solution, and we have good technology, etc. But the second one is also that we really could take advantage of covering the entire value chain, because I mean we were able to deliver while many of our competitors, they were not able to deliver. So meaning that, I mean, we really won a lot of market shares because, you know, we delivered, and others had to say, sorry, we can't come back next year. We even delivered our systems to one of our core competitors because, you know, the competitor, you know, didn't want to lose market shares, and they say, okay, then I'm selling your products to my customers. And I mean, this was brilliant. So that's the reason why we've been able to grow there by 130%, so more than doubling compared to last year. This was really extremely successful. And with regards to the solar energy part, I mean, where we are doing all the power electronics for the solar storage systems of all the market leading companies, I think there we really have the best systems, and the story here behind is that really the leading brands for those home storage systems, which is an absolute booming market itself, they are all working together with us, and we have some more even in the pipeline. So I mean, if I look into this, fiscal year, I'm quite sure that we will, you know, go to the 100 million alone in this segment. I mean, last year it was 50 million, so that's just doubling. And I mean, if I look into all the order books, and here I think nothing is inflated because there's a big boom due to climate change, etc. And that's one of the core solutions to get this done. You know, this could easily be 180 million next year alone in this segment. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, well, great for KATEK, but also great for the environment and you know, that topic that you're passionate about as well. So tell me about the Ghost Charger.
Yeah, the Ghost Charger, our hypothesis there was that because we were developing this ICCPD, this mobile charger with latest technology for Porsche, that if we take this then to the next level and come with a, let me say, brand agnostic home charger with 22 kilowatt, which can be used all over Europe. And because the public infrastructure is so difficult, and you know, with all the administration behind, and then it takes years until it can be built, etc., etc., we think that to make the change happen to e-mobility, I mean, you really need those home chargers, because so that everybody in the garage and, you know, at the home can have their own chargers. But this chargers needs to have the latest technology, especially in terms of connectivity. So talking with the car, talking with the smart home, and talking with the grid. And there's a standard in Europe, that's the ISO 15118. And we have the only product which is totally compliant with this standard right now. And I mean, it's ready developed. You know, we decided to manufacture this in the Czech Republic, maybe also in Leipzig later. And I mean, we are ready in Q1. And the installed base alone in Europe for this kind of home chargers will be 65 million by 35
units. Yeah.
Units. And I mean, this is, I mean, absolutely perfect. And again, it's again to have the full value chain. I mean, we are doing the sourcing, we are doing the production, we have everything.
The design,
like many other companies with chargers, to have a manufacturing partner and to have this and that. We are doing all on our own, and that's really a strength in times of supply chain issues.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting product. So my understanding is, if I wanted for the Australian market to create the Scoop charger, I could put my logo on that, white label, and you would sell me it as a white labeled,
there will be no
white labeled version and deliver direct to my consumer.
Totally right. There will be no KATEK charger in blue. Of course, we have some nice renderings, but this is not going to happen. You know, we are selling this or doing this. I mean, we are the partner of the industry. So all the industries which need kind of chargers, automotive, energy companies, etc., they can use our charger with their logo, with their colors on it. And Phil Stoughton charger for Australia is a brilliant idea. We should do this.
Okay, so what I think is really interesting there is we're then in that ODM white label product market, and we're treading that fine line between EMS, ODM, and an OEM, and we're staying away from OEM because there lies the risk of competing with potential customers.
Yeah.
Are you as a leadership team cognizant of that fine line and how to tread it? And is it just about, in this case, creating IP and value that you can then sell to the market as an ODM or as a manufacturing partner?
Yeah, I mean, if you really have a idea of what we are doing, which is a little bit wider than you are, you know, kind of an EMS, you are just doing the manufacturing. But if you are really understand yourself as the partner with regards to electronics to the entire European industry, then what the European industry is asking for, you know, can be completely different from case to case and project to project. So in sometimes they just want you to you know, manufacture the electronics. In other cases, you want to have they also in the engineering team, and in other cases they want much more, like Porsche saying, I need an electronics partner doing everything for me, because I'm automotive, so please deliver the complete device to ourselves. Or also in the solar industry, where Sonnen, where Fiesmann, they ask us saying, I mean, we want really to develop you the complete power electronics and then delivering the modules to us so that we can readily build it in our final system. So for us, it's more, we have a different understanding of what an electronics partner should deliver to the customer. It depends from what the customer really wants. And I mean, we are open to all approaches. The only thing which we are saying is, if there's a customer asking us for pure, let me say, electronics production, I mean, just the classic EMS.
PCBA.
Yeah, exactly. Then we are saying, okay, we are doing this, but this should be the entry point of our partnership. And we are expecting that, if this is successful and if you are satisfied, we then can also discuss about other parts of the value chain, because then the value we can bring to the table will be much, much, much bigger. If they're saying, no, for the next 50 years, I just want you to be the, as we say in German, the Bestücker, then we say, that's great, but then we are the wrong... the wrong
choice. Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. That comes into that whole category of recruiting customers and people understanding what the Team Blue brand is all about. And we'll come to that as the last question. But just before we do that, I wanted to just briefly talk to you about the M&A strategy. You've just closed on Sigma Point. What drew you to Sigma Point in the first place?
So Sigma Point has basically three advantages. The first one is that already one of our largest customers here in Europe, that's Kontron, one of our top 5 customers, is also the largest customer of Sigma Point. So, I mean, in terms of, this is really strengthening our wallet, at one of our key customers. So that's the first reason why that's brilliant. Secondly, Sigma Point is a company which is serving industries we are not in today, like homeland security and defense, which is becoming more and more important. So, I mean, we will use this as kind of a springboard effect, also to do more of this in Europe, because now we have references, we have people who know how to deal with those kinds of
insight.
Exactly. And thirdly, they are very comparable to our production site in Mauerstetten. Very, very comparable in terms of technology, in terms of what we can, etc. So this means that from now on, we can offer to all of our European customers to also do something with us at the Northern American market. And there's a strong demand to work also with a European company where they already have contracts with, experience with, they are trusting, can do something also in the North American market. So those are the three main reasons why we decided to do this.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I visited Mauerstetten earlier this year with Jürgen Lauter, and it's a very impressive facility. I look forward to visiting Sigma Point at some point. Do you consider this as a springboard for the Americas? Are you expecting to do more there?
Yeah. We also, to be very honest here, we went through all of our, let me say, M&A pipeline and prioritized. And one of the criterias right now, of course, is in times of restricted cash, in times of high inventories, is of course, I mean, how can you design the cash out over the period?
The deal.
Absolutely, that's extremely important. And I mean, so we will focus this year on let me say M&A deals, which will come along with a lot of value, which are value accretive, but at the same time with limited cash out, at least limited cash out right now. So we are looking for models where, for instance, you can say you have a small amount right now, and then you have a earn-out component.
Stock deal, earn-out.
In 23 or 24, etc. Or you are doing a strategic outsourcing deal where not the price is the most important element, but they want to have a strong electronics partner, and they are looking more into the frame contract for the ongoing business relationship, and that's the more important issue. And this is also something where we are working on right now, and a very interesting strategic outsourcing deal, which if it's lucky could also happen then in maybe end of quarter 4.
Yeah, I sat on a show, a Made in Europe show with Dieter Weiss and Eric Miskel at the end of last year. And I predicted in 2022, there would be 3 European EMS companies over $1 billion in sales. So I guess the Enix GPV deal has helped me along with that process, but we're still looking for the third.
Yeah.
So the last question is kind of the building of the Team Blue brand seems to be going very much in the right direction. I'm sure it has an impact on the M&A strategy because companies are now aware of you, the way you think, the new relationships you're forging, the new model you're building. There's value there, but it's also important in attracting customers, but talent as well. People need to see that you're somewhat different and you're an attractive company to work for. How do you see the development of that Team Blue brand? And is that moving in the direction that you've always seen it moving in and always wanted it to move in?
Yeah, I mean, with regards to the Team Blue, I mean, the spirit is fantastic. I'm always claiming also we have the best management team in the industry, but there might be others claiming the same.
Claim the same.
But I'm really deeply convinced, and it's not only experience and knowledge. It's also the hands-on spirit. I mean, just to give you an example, and I think that's really unique. We had alone in the last 4 weeks, we had 2 examples where two of our subsidiaries, 2 of our entities were in deep trouble because of workload, because of also where the goods come in, where the components come in to check them, etc., etc. And in both cases, the entire weekend, the respective managing directors was there and was really unpacking boxes. And I mean, leading by example. And this is something which normally in big companies you will never find. Maybe they come into their office and they say, I make sure that everything is happening. But I mean, they really stand in the middle of the team and they unboxed the entire day. They were there at 7 a.m. and they unboxed the, I mean, that's the spirit, and that's going to be, and everybody's feeling this. I mean, that's the spirit. So I think in this respect, we are doing quite well. Where we are not doing quite well, honestly speaking, is, for instance, in terms of diversity. Diversity in terms of cultures, etc. I mean, that's all fine. But for instance, if you look at women, female managers, etc., we have more than 50% of all of our employees are female. More than 50%. But I mean, the more you go into the management levels, the less women you have, and that's something we definitely need to change, and we are also about to change. We now have a female CFO in Memmingen, which has been newly appointed now 1st of September. The CEO of the KATEK Grassau Group is a lady in the 40s with huge experience. So we are systematically, kind of rebuilding KATEK also in terms of diversity, because I'm absolutely not satisfied on where we stand there today. Yeah, and I think you're doing the right thing. You're flagging it as something that has not been achieved. And I think if culturally you're going in that direction and you constantly measure that and maintain that focus, then you'll get there. It'll take time, and it'll take time for the entire industry. We both know it's the right thing to do, and we both know that you've just got to push forward and do it. Exciting times, lots going on as always. Thanks so much for your time. It's always a pleasure to chat, Rainer. And let's do this again soon. Thank you. Okay, super, Phil. I'm looking forward for the next time. Bye-bye.